My wife, not knowing my family was rich, humiliates them on their first visit. The morning sun gently illuminated the streets of Boston when Ethan Thompson left his modest apartment in the Beacon Hill neighborhood. At 28, the young architect carried a secret that few could imagine. He was the heir to one of the wealthiest families in America. However, Ethan had chosen a different path, opting to live simply and build his own career away from the influence of his family name. That morning, like so many others, Ethan headed to his favorite coffee shop. The aroma of freshly ground coffee filled the air as he placed his usual order. It was at that moment that fate decided to intervene, in the form of a beautiful woman who accidentally bumped into him, spilling coffee on his white shirt. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry!" exclaimed the woman, her brown eyes wide with concern. Ethan, always gentle, smiled. "Don't worry, accidents happen." The woman, who introduced herself as Olivia Parker, insisted on paying for a new shirt for Ethan. As they talked, they discovered they had a lot in common. Olivia was an ambitious 26-year-old lawyer, passionate about her profession, and determined to build a successful career on her own. What started as a casual encounter soon turned into something more. Ethan and Olivia began seeing each other frequently, sharing coffees, lunches, and eventually romantic dinners. The connection between them was undeniable, and both felt attracted not only to each other's appearance, but also to their shared values and ambitions. As the months passed, their relationship blossomed. Ethan was enchanted by Olivia's determination and independence, while she admired his humility and work ethic. However, as they grew closer, Ethan found himself increasingly torn about revealing his secret. He feared that the truth about his family might change the way Olivia saw him. Would she think he was just pretending to be an ordinary man? Would she question his motives for keeping the secret? These doubts tormented him, but the fear of losing Olivia always prevented him from revealing the truth. 6 months after their first encounter, Olivia surprised Ethan with an unexpected request. During a picnic in Central Park, she knelt down, took out a small box from her pocket, and asked, "Ethan Thompson, would you do me the honor of marrying me?" Ethan's heart raced. For a moment, he thought about revealing everything right there, but fear paralyzed him. Instead, with tears in his eyes, he replied, "Yes, Olivia, 1,000 times, yes." The following months were a whirlwind of wedding preparations. Ethan had to juggle to keep his parents, Richard and Elizabeth Thompson, away from the planning. He insisted on a simple ceremony, claiming he wanted something intimate and personal. Richard and Elizabeth, although confused by their son's insistence on a modest wedding, respected his wish. They loved Ethan unconditionally, and even without fully understanding his choices, were happy to see him find someone who made him happy. The wedding was a small but love-filled celebration. Olivia radiated in a simple yet elegant dress, while Ethan could barely contain his emotion as he watched her walk towards him. Ethan's parents watched the ceremony with pride, although a bit disconcerted at having to contain their usual extravagance. After the honeymoon, the couple settled into a modest apartment in a middle-class neighborhood of Boston. Olivia was proud of her financial independence and the life they were building together. Ethan, in turn, remained torn between his love for Olivia and the weight of the secret he carried. Married life brought new challenges and joys. Ethan and Olivia worked hard in their respective careers, supporting each other and dreaming of a bright future. However, Ethan's secret loomed over him like a dark cloud, threatening to pour down at any moment. About 6 months after the wedding, Olivia received a job offer that would change everything. A prestigious law firm in London offered her a position for a year, with the possibility of extension. It was a unique opportunity that could catapult her career to new heights. When Olivia told Ethan the news, he felt his world spin. On one hand, he was immensely proud of his wife and knew how much this opportunity meant to her. On the other, the prospect of a year of separation scared him, especially considering the secret he still kept. That night, as they had dinner, Ethan almost revealed everything. The words were on the tip of his tongue, ready to be said. But then, Olivia's phone rang. It was the London office, wanting to confirm some details. The moment passed, and Ethan felt the weight of the unsaid accumulating even more. With a heavy heart, but determined to support his wife, Ethan encouraged Olivia to accept the offer. They spent the following weeks preparing for the temporary separation, promising to keep in constant contact and make visits whenever possible. On the day of Olivia's departure, at Logan International Airport, Ethan once again fought against the urge to reveal his secret. But seeing the excitement in his wife's eyes, he didn't have the courage to potentially overshadow her moment. With a passionate kiss and the promise to talk every day, they said goodbye. The months that followed were an emotional roller coaster for Ethan. He immersed himself in his work, trying to fill the void left by Olivia. Their daily video call conversations were the highlight of his days, but also a constant reminder of the secret that separated them. Several times during that year, Ethan was on the verge of telling the truth. Once, during Olivia's visit to Boston, he even prepared a special dinner with the intention of revealing everything. But a power outage in the city interrupted his plans, and the moment passed once again. On another occasion, during Ethan's trip to London, he almost let it slip when Olivia casually mentioned how different their life could be if they had more financial resources. Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but was interrupted by a noisy group of tourists passing by them. As the year drew to a close, Ethan's anxiety grew. He knew he couldn't keep hiding the truth for much longer. The weight of the secret was affecting his mental health, and although he tried to hide it, Olivia was beginning to notice that something was wrong. Then, with only a month left until Olivia's scheduled return, Ethan made a decision. He would prepare a surprise to welcome her and finally tell the whole truth. With this plan in mind, he began making preparations, determined to finally rid himself of the burden he had carried for so long. However, fate had other plans. 3 weeks before her expected return date, Olivia decided to surprise Ethan. She managed to advance her return and flew back to Boston without telling anyone. That sunny Saturday afternoon, Ethan was at home reviewing some architectural projects when he heard the doorbell ring. When he opened the door, his heart almost stopped. There was Olivia, radiant and beautiful as always, with 2 large suitcases by her side. "Surprise, my love!" exclaimed Olivia, throwing herself into Ethan's arms. For a moment, Ethan was speechless, a mixture of joy and panic taking over him. As he hugged Olivia tightly, his mind raced. This was the moment, he thought. As soon as they entered the apartment, he would tell her everything. But before he could close the door, Ethan heard familiar voices approaching down the hallway. His blood froze when he recognized the voices of his parents, Richard and Elizabeth Thompson. "Son, it's good you're home. We decided to make a surprise visit." Richard's voice died when he and Elizabeth reached the door and saw Olivia. The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan looked from Olivia to his parents, his heart beating so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. This was the scenario he feared most. All his worlds colliding at once. Olivia was the first to break the silence. With a polite but visibly confused smile, she turned to the newcomers. "Hello, you must be Ethan's parents. What a pleasant surprise. I'm Olivia, his wife." Richard and Elizabeth exchanged quick glances before smiling back. They were dressed simply, very different from their usual elegant style. Ethan realized they had probably dressed this way to fit in with what they believed to be their son's lifestyle. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Olivia," said Elizabeth, her voice warm but with a hint of uncertainty. "Ethan has told us so much about you." Ethan, still in shock, finally found his voice. "Why don't you come in? Let's talk inside." The group entered the small apartment, and Ethan felt the weight of years of secrets about to collapse on him. He nervously watched as Olivia looked around, her eyes narrowing slightly as she noticed the simple clothes and modest appearance of her in-laws. "So," Olivia began, sitting on the couch next to Ethan, "did you come from far to visit?" Richard laughed softly. "Oh no, we live right here in Boston. We just haven't had many opportunities to meet before." Olivia nodded, but Ethan noticed a glimmer of confusion in her eyes. He knew what she was thinking. Why hadn't they met more often if they lived in the same city? "And what do you do?" asked Olivia, her tone polite but with a hint of condescension that made Ethan inwardly cringe. Elizabeth opened her mouth to answer, but Ethan quickly interrupted her. "My dad works with investments, and my mom is a consultant." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it was far from the whole truth. Richard was, in reality, the CEO of one of the largest investment companies in the country, and Elizabeth was a renowned art consultant for high-level collectors. Olivia arched an eyebrow. "Oh, I see. It must be interesting." The tone of her voice made it clear that she didn't find it interesting at all. Ethan felt his stomach tighten. He knew that tone. It was the same one Olivia used when talking about people she considered unambitious. Richard and Elizabeth exchanged another look, clearly noticing the change in Olivia's tone. Ethan wanted to intervene, to explain everything at that moment, but the words seemed stuck in his throat. "And you, Olivia?" Elizabeth asked gently. "Ethan told us you're a lawyer." Olivia's face lit up. "Yes. I just got back from a year working at one of the largest law firms in London. It was an incredible experience." "That sounds wonderful," commented Richard. "It must have been a great opportunity." "Oh yes," continued Olivia, her tone becoming increasingly arrogant. "You know, I've always believed in building my own career, in achieving things on my own merit. Not everyone has that mindset these days." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the tension grow in the room. He knew that Olivia was, without realizing it, insulting her in-laws, assuming they had no ambition or success based solely on their simple appearance. "Well," said Elizabeth, maintaining her composure, "I believe everyone has their own path to success." Olivia laughed lightly. Of course, but you must understand what I mean. There are people who simply content themselves with little, right? No ambition to grow, to improve their lives." Richard cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. "Actually, we believe that success can be measured in many different ways." "Ah, yes, of course," replied Olivia, her condescending tone becoming more evident. "But wouldn't you like to see Ethan in a better position? I mean, look at this apartment. It's not exactly what you'd expect for a talented architect like him." Ethan felt his face burn with shame. He wanted to say something, to interrupt Olivia, but he was paralyzed, watching in horror as his wife inadvertently insulted his parents. "Actually," continued Olivia, apparently oblivious to the discomfort she was causing, "I was thinking about how we could help you. I know things must be difficult, especially with the current economy. Maybe we could arrange something, a little financial help for you to get better established." It was at this moment that Ethan realized the situation had completely spiraled out of control. His wife was offering charity to the billionaire Thompsons, one of the richest and most influential families in the country. Richard and Elizabeth were visibly shocked, but maintained a dignified posture. Before Richard or Elizabeth could respond, Ethan finally found his voice. "Olivia, stop!" he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "You don't understand." Olivia looked at him, confused. What do you mean, Ethan? I'm just trying to help your parents. It's obvious they need assistance." It was the last straw for Ethan. Years of secrecy and lies by omission exploded inside him. "They don't need help, Olivia," he exclaimed, abruptly standing up. "My parents are Richard and Elizabeth Thompson." "What?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Ethan, what are you talking about?" Ethan ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. "I come from an extremely wealthy family, Olivia. I hid this from you from the beginning because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for my money. But now you've just offered charity to two of the richest people in this country." Olivia turned pale, the realization of what she had done finally hitting her. She looked at Richard and Elizabeth, who maintained neutral expressions, although it was possible to see the hurt in their eyes. I didn't know," stammered Olivia. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Didn't mean to what, Olivia?" interrupted Ethan, his voice laden with disappointment. "Didn't mean to be condescending? Didn't mean to judge people based solely on their appearance? Didn't mean to assume someone is less valuable just because you think they have less money?" Tears began to form in Olivia's eyes. "Ethan, please. I didn't know." "That's exactly the point," exclaimed Ethan. "You didn't know, but you judged anyway. You treated my parents as if they were inferior just because you thought they didn't have money. This shows me a side of you I've never seen before, and frankly, it's not a side I like." Richard finally intervened, his voice calm but firm. "Ethan, son, calm down. I'm sure Olivia didn't mean any harm." Elizabeth nodded, although her eyes still showed sadness. "We all make mistakes, dear. Maybe we should give everyone some time to process this." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. He looked at Olivia, who seemed completely devastated. "I think I need some time alone," he finally said. "Olivia, please, could you leave for a few hours? I need to talk to my parents and think about all this." Olivia nodded silently, tears streaming down her face. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, stopping only to murmur an almost inaudible, "I'm sorry," before leaving. As soon as the door closed, Ethan collapsed on the couch, burying his face in his hands. Richard and Elizabeth sat down beside him, each placing a comforting hand on his shoulders. "Oh, son," sighed Elizabeth. "Why didn't you tell us you hadn't told Olivia about our family?" Ethan looked at his mother, his eyes full of regret. "I wanted to tell her, Mom. So many times, I almost did. But the more time passed, the harder it became. And then, this happened." Richard gently squeezed Ethan's shoulder. "We understand your desire to build your own life, son, but hiding such a big part of who you are, it never ends well." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of years of secrets finally dissipating. "I know, Dad. I just wanted to be sure she loved me for me, not for the money or the family name." "And now?" asked Elizabeth softly. "What are you going to do?" Ethan sighed deeply. "I don't know. Part of me wants to forgive her immediately. After all, she didn't know the truth. But another part is hurt by what you saw," completed Richard, "by the prejudice and judgment she demonstrated." "Exactly," agreed Ethan. "How can I trust her now? How can I be sure that she really loves me for who I am and not for what I have?" Elizabeth hugged her son. "Love, these are questions that only you can answer. But remember, we all make mistakes. The true test of character is how we handle those mistakes and what we learn from them." Ethan nodded, grateful for the support and wisdom of his parents. He knew he had a difficult decision ahead. Could his marriage survive this revelation and its consequences? Meanwhile, outside the apartment, Olivia walked the streets of Boston, her world turned upside down. She felt ashamed, confused, and scared. How could she have been so blind? How could she have judged so quickly? And more importantly, had she ruined her marriage because of her prejudices? In the days that followed, Ethan and Olivia lived in an emotional limbo. Ethan spent most of his time in the apartment, reflecting on his marriage and the lies that had sustained it. Olivia, in turn, stayed at a nearby hotel, respecting Ethan's request for space, but desperate to fix things. She sent daily messages, begging for forgiveness and a chance to talk. Each message was more anguished than the last. "Ethan, please give me a chance to explain. I know I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. Can we talk? I understand if you hate me now, but please know that I'm truly sorry. I never meant to hurt you or your parents. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm willing to do anything to fix this. Please give me a chance." Ethan read each message, his heart torn between the love he felt for Olivia and the pain caused by her actions. He knew he needed to make a decision, but with each passing day, that decision seemed more difficult. A week after the incident, Ethan finally responded to one of Olivia's messages. "We can meet tomorrow at Boston Common at 10 a.m. We have a lot to talk about." The next day, an anxious Ethan waited at the agreed location. When he saw Olivia approaching, his heart raced. She looked exhausted, with visible dark circles under her eyes and a deeply sad expression on her face. "Hi," she said softly, stopping a few steps away. "Hi," Ethan replied, indicating a nearby bench. "Shall we sit?" They sat in silence for a few moments, the air heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Olivia spoke. "Ethan, I don't even know where to start. What I did was unforgivable. I judged your parents based solely on appearances and assumptions. I was arrogant, prejudiced, and cruel. There are no excuses for my behavior." Ethan observed her, noticing the tears that were beginning to form in her eyes. "You're right," he said calmly. "There are no excuses. But what hurt me the most, Olivia, wasn't just what you did that day. It was realizing that I didn't really know the person I married." Olivia sobbed softly. "I understand, and you're right. I didn't even recognize myself that day. I was horrified by my own behavior. But Ethan, I swear, that's not me. Or at least, it's not who I want to be." Ethan sighed. "But what if it is, Olivia? What if that side of you has always been there, just hidden? How can I trust that you really love me for who I am, and not for what I have? Because I fell in love with you when I thought you had nothing but yourself to offer," Olivia replied, her voice choked with emotion. "I fell in love with the kind, intelligent, and passionate man you are, with the talented architect who works hard to achieve his dreams, with the man who has always supported me and believed in me." She paused, wiping away tears. "I know my actions contradict my words, but Ethan, what happened that day made me realize how much I still need to grow as a person. I want to be better. For you, for me, for us." Ethan felt his own throat tighten with emotion. "And my parents? How do you plan to fix what you did?" "I'd like to apologize to them personally," said Olivia. "I know words aren't enough, but I want to show them, through my future actions, that I've learned from my mistakes. I want to really get to know them without prejudices or judgments." Ethan nodded slowly. "And what about the money? My family?" Olivia looked directly into Ethan's eyes. "Ethan, I didn't marry you for money or status. I married you because I love you. If you decide you don't want anything to do with your family's money, I'll support your decision. If you want to embrace your heritage, I'll be by your side. What matters to me is you, not your last name or your bank account." There was a moment of silence as Ethan absorbed Olivia's words. Finally, he spoke. "I want to believe you, Olivia. I really do. But it's going to take time to rebuild the trust that was broken." Olivia nodded, hope shining in her eyes. "I understand. I'm willing to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to prove to you that I'm worthy of your trust again." Ethan reached out, gently touching Olivia's face. "It won't be easy. We'll have to be completely honest with each other from now on. No secrets, no assumptions." "I completely agree," said Olivia, covering Ethan's hand with hers. "I want us to start over, Ethan. This time, no masks, no pretenses. Just us exactly as we are." Ethan felt a small smile form on his lips. "I'd like that." They hugged, both crying silently, aware that this was just the first step in a long journey of healing and rediscovery. In the weeks that followed, Ethan and Olivia worked hard to rebuild their relationship. Olivia met with Richard and Elizabeth, offering her most sincere apologies and asking for a chance to truly get to know them. To her surprise and relief, Ethan's parents were gracious and willing to give her that opportunity. Ethan, in turn, began to share more about his life and his family with Olivia. He took her to see the Thompson mansion, told stories of his privileged childhood, and explained why he had chosen to distance himself from all of it. Slowly, day by day, they rebuilt the trust and love between them. It wasn't an easy process. There were moments of doubt, heated discussions, and tears, but there were also moments of laughter, discoveries, and deep connection. 1 year after the incident that almost destroyed their marriage, Ethan and Olivia were sitting on the porch of a country house they had rented for a romantic weekend. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. "You know," said Ethan, holding Olivia's hand, "a year ago, I thought everything was over between us." Olivia squeezed his hand. "Me too. I've never felt so scared and regretful in my entire life." Ethan smiled softly. "But look at us now. Who would have thought that terrible day would lead us to this? To a stronger and more honest relationship?" asked Olivia. "Exactly," replied Ethan. "I think, in a way, we should be thankful for that day. It forced us to face our truths, our fears, and prejudices." Olivia nodded, leaning on Ethan's shoulder. "You're right. That day made me realize how much I still needed to grow as a person. It made me question my beliefs and values. It was painful, but necessary. And look at you now," said Ethan with pride, "working on pro bono cases, helping people who really need legal assistance. Who would have thought the ambitious corporate lawyer would become an advocate for the less fortunate?" Olivia laughed softly. "Well, I had a great example of how to use privileges to do good. Your parents taught me a lot about generosity and social responsibility." Ethan smiled, remembering how his parents had welcomed Olivia, despite the difficult start. They saw in her the same potential that Ethan always saw, and helped her channel her ambition towards nobler causes. "And you?" asked Olivia, turning to look into Ethan's eyes. "How do you feel now? Not having to hide who you really are anymore?" Ethan took a deep breath, feeling a peace he hadn't experienced in years. "It's liberating," he admitted, "not having to monitor every word, every gesture, being able to simply be myself with all my complexities and contradictions." "I'm glad to hear that," said Olivia, caressing Ethan's face, "because that's the Ethan I love, the complete man, with his past, his present, and all the possibilities for the future." They were silent for a moment, watching the last colors of the sunset fade on the horizon. Then Ethan turned to Olivia with a sparkle in his eyes. "Speaking of the future," he began, a little nervous, "I was thinking, Maybe it's time we expanded our family. Olivia's eyes widened. You mean? Ethan nodded, smiling. Yes, I think I'm ready for us to be parents. Of course, if you are too. Tears of joy began to form in Olivia's eyes. Oh, Ethan, I'm more than ready. Actually, she paused, biting her lip with a shy smile. I was going to tell you tonight. I took a test this morning and I'm pregnant. It was Ethan's turn to be speechless. We are going to have a baby? Olivia nodded, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, we're going to have a baby. Ethan pulled her into a tight hug, his heart overflowing with emotion. They stayed like that for a long time, embracing, crying, and laughing, marveling at the miracle of life growing inside Olivia. When they finally separated, Ethan held Olivia's face between his hands, his eyes shining with love and determination. I promise you, Olivia, and this baby, that I will always be honest, that I will never again hide who I am or where I come from. We'll raise our child with love, honesty, and the values we've learned throughout this journey. Olivia nodded, placing her hand over Ethan's. And I promise that I will always strive to be the best version of myself. For our child, for you, for our family. I will never again judge someone by appearance or assumptions. We'll teach our child to see the value in every person, regardless of their financial or social situation. They sealed their promises with a kiss, the sun finally disappearing on the horizon, marking the end of a chapter in their lives and the beginning of another, full of new possibilities and challenges. In the months that followed, Ethan and Olivia faced the pregnancy together, more united than ever. They decided to move to a larger house, but still modest by Thompson standards. Ethan continued his work as an architect, now focusing on social housing projects, using his contacts and influence to make a difference in the lives of less fortunate people. Olivia, in turn, reduced her workload at the law firm to dedicate more time to pro bono cases. Ethan looked at his newborn daughter, marveling at her perfection. He leaned in and kissed Olivia's forehead, tears of joy streaming down his face. She's beautiful, he whispered, just like her mother. Olivia smiled, exhausted but radiant. What should we name her? Ethan thought for a moment, then smiled. How about Sophia? It means wisdom in Greek. And I think it was through wisdom that we got here. Olivia nodded, delighted with the choice. Sophia Thompson. It's perfect. As they held their newborn daughter, Ethan and Olivia exchanged a look full of love and promise. They had been through so much. Secrets, misunderstandings, hurts, but emerged stronger, wiser, and more united. Sophia represented not only their love, but also everything they had learned and overcome. She was the symbol of a new beginning, of a life based on honesty, understanding, and unconditional love. At that moment, looking at his little family, Ethan knew that all the difficulties they faced were worth it. The secret he carried for so long, Olivia's error in judgment, the pain they both felt, all of this led them to this perfect moment. And as Sophia opened her little eyes for the first time, Ethan made a silent promise. He vowed that his daughter would grow up knowing both the value of hard work and humility, as well as the power of privilege and social responsibility. She would be raised to see beyond appearances, to judge people by their character and not by their bank account. Olivia, as if reading Ethan's thoughts, added softly, "She'll grow up knowing that a person's true value is in their heart, not in their wallet." Ethan nodded, his heart overflowing with love and gratitude. And she'll know that mistakes can be overcome, that forgiveness is powerful, and that true love can overcome any obstacle. As the small family shared this intimate moment outside the delivery room, Richard and Elizabeth Thompson waited anxiously to meet their granddaughter. They talked in low voices, remembering the turbulent journey that brought them here. "Who would have thought," Richard murmured, "that terrible day would lead us to this wonderful moment?" Elizabeth smiled, squeezing her husband's hand. "Sometimes you have to go through storms to truly appreciate the calm." When they were finally called in, the grandparents' eyes filled with tears at the sight of little Sophia. They approached cautiously, as if fearing the whole moment was a dream that could dissipate at any instant. "She's perfect," whispered Elizabeth, gently touching Sophia's tiny hand. Richard looked at his son, who was radiant with pride and joy. "You did a good job, son. Not just with Sophia, but with everything. We're very proud of you both." Olivia, still holding Sophia, looked at her in-laws with teary eyes. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything, for giving me a second chance, for supporting us, for being who you are." The room fell silent for a moment, filled only with the soft sound of Sophia's breathing. It was a comfortable silence, full of love, forgiveness, and new possibilities. As the Thompson family gathered around its newest member, it was evident that a new chapter was beginning. A chapter of honesty, mutual understanding, and unconditional love. Sophia wasn't just a baby. She was the embodiment of everything Ethan and Olivia had learned and overcome. And so, in that hospital room, surrounded by love and hope, Ethan and Olivia's story found not an end, but a new beginning. A beginning full of promises, lessons learned, and a bright future ahead. For in the end, it wasn't about wealth or status. It was about love, honesty, and the ability to grow together through adversity. And with Sophia in their arms, Ethan and Olivia knew they had everything that really mattered.